This is a long one, but since we've been talking about this stuff for so long now, I want to get into the answer, the one answer that Bill DeWitt III did have in this presser from Chaim Bloom. So it's dense. There's a lot in here, but Bill DeWitt III was asked about attendance, broadcast uncertainty, and the CBA, but he gave a full-throated answer talking about attendance. It was about a 3.5-minute answer. You're going to hear about 2 minutes here. I cut out the middle minute where he talks about all the things they're going to do to get to increase the fan experience inside the park. And he also talked about how their parking rates are competitive. Those are the only things I cut out. Everything else is his direct answer here from the presser.
Start on the attendance piece. Obviously, we've all seen it. The numbers are down, and it's something that we're not happy about. If to the extent that that's a message, the message has been received. I don't really, think that. What we're all about is trying to think about ways to increase attendance beyond the biggest way, which is obviously what Chaim's talking about. We know that a winning team on the field is the most important thing relative to attendance, but then there's, several factors that we can control on the business and operational side. The first thing I think would be around sort of the game day entertainment changes. We've talked about those. And the other big thing is safety. We hear a little bit a lot about that from our fans, maybe concerned about downtown issues or what have you. And we have an incredible game day staff that has worked really hard on safety in the ballpark. We're DHS-certified, which is a huge thing. Not every team has that, which means that you're doing absolutely everything you can internally for safety, and you're recognized by that from the Department of Homeland Security. But externally is something I've worked a lot on. We were able to get successful legislation done in the state this spring for an entertainment district, which will largely provide funding for additional layer of security downtown, a permanent layer, which is very important to us. I'm on a number of different committees and collaborative groups with our key business stakeholders downtown, the other sports teams, as well as the other stakeholders, entertainment stakeholders. And I'm working a lot on that. I work with the police chief on some things directly. So, it's really addressing all of those things that we can control on the business side. And we're, as you know, new leadership on the business side too, with Anook and others who are taking that head on.
So one thing I wanted to play that for a lot of reasons. One of the big ones was he mentioned it there. It was the entire back half of the back third of the full question. John Mozeliak mentioned it as well yesterday. Previously to both these press conferences, I've asked you about where you rank safety up on reasons why we saw 1 million fans not come to the ballpark over the last 2 years. He mentioned it again. Your thoughts on both BD3 and John Mozeliak citing that?
I think it's an issue, but I don't think it's the issue. And the reason that I don't think it's the issue is because the Cardinals could have sold more tickets to the Savannah Bananas than any other city in America. They could have sold out Busch Stadium 6 times. People weren't worried about going downtown and safety issues if they could go down to see the Savannah Bananas, something that entertained them. The Blues sell out virtually every game, and people aren't worried about going down to Enterprise Center, even at night, so they aren't worried about safety there. Same with St. Louis City SC. They still draw at a very high level, 22,500 seats, most of them filled. People aren't worried about going down there. So while safety is an issue, I don't think it's the issue. Now, that being said, I know some older people that don't want to go because they're worried about the perception that downtown is unsafe. As I listen to that answer, I'm thinking about who are the other entities that are doing things to help downtown St. Louis advance? What corporate entity is doing more to advance downtown St. Louis than the St. Louis Cardinals? I do, and I'm sure there are companies out there, and maybe you can help me with those companies that have stayed in downtown St. Louis and that are doing things to
Purina.
And I don't know what they're doing to enhance the safety of downtown St. Louis. I don't know that they have opened up office space like the St. Louis Cardinals have, and Cordish, obviously, at Ballpark Village. But Purina is still down there, no doubt about it. Anheuser-Busch is still down there on the outskirts of downtown St. Louis. I don't know that there is a company that I can think of off the top of my head that's doing more to try to make downtown St. Louis a pleasant place to be. I was intrigued yesterday by Mo basically saying that he's bullish on the future of downtown St. Louis. I was pleased to hear.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that almost felt like more of his comments in his farewell presser were about St. Louis than it was directly about the Cardinals, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. CD Stein 69 brings up Enterprise. Enterprise is based in Clayton. Yes, they do a lot of things for the city. They have helped fund some of the things at Forest Park and city schools. But in terms of being in downtown and helping downtown advance and helping to make downtown St. Louis a vibrant place again, Enterprise does wonderful things for the community, but I don't think that that's necessarily one of them.
High definition. Randy's logic is flawed. If someone buys a product for 20 years and that product's quality falls and becomes subpar from what it was, a person is likely to stop buying that product.
I don't disagree with that. I don't know where my logic is flawed there.
Yes, because high definition didn't connect the part where then you said it's stupid to then expect that company to then not be able to all of a sudden start creating a higher quality product while you and other people aren't buying their current product, because how are they going to spend the money they need to buy a higher quality product?
Yeah, that's
the part of the logic that you're saying is
right.
You can't then expect them to spend more than they were even spending previously when you're not supporting them. And that's and I think that's the other part of the logic that you threw out there.
Yep. And why do companies go out of business? Because their products become subpar and people quit buying them.
Yeah,
right.
That's fair.
That's how companies go out of business.
Craig Lewis says, I trust Mo's evaluation of the future of St. Louis about as much as I trust his evaluation of upcoming players. Yeah, it's not like he's been helping run $1 billion business in downtown St. Louis for the last 30 years or anything. It's not like he's still a resident of the city. He doesn't have he's not talking to corporate leaders or anything like that. One of his primary workmates, Bill DeWitt III, wasn't just talking about how he's been meeting with people in the downtown area about cooperative ways that they can get more security, not just inside the park, but also in areas around the park. It sounds to me like John Mozeliak might have a pretty good idea of things going on in downtown St. Louis especially more than the average person living in downtown St. Louis, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I don't think the average listener we have knows that much about downtown relative to the average downtown resident, and therefore I'm going to trust John Mozeliak's take on that as a guy who's lived and worked there as long as he has, or worked there, I should say.
King's Echo. I really thought it was a bad taste for Chaim Bloom to read straight from a sheet of paper. It came off not very genuine.
That's a good last comment to have for the show.
Oh, you like that?
It's a good last comment to have.
The thing.
Good last comment to have for the show. You know what I hate?
He's a genuine guy.
You know what I hate is when the people that need to have long-term plans plan for things. That's what really bothers is the people that I want to have huge responsibilities. I really hate when they come prepared. It really gets my goat. You prepared? You thought about this beforehand? Jerk.
No, not it. Just he didn't think it was very genuine because he didn't speak from the heart. One of my favorite things ever, one of my favorite interviews was with Terry Bradshaw, who, if you Google or go to YouTube,
it's the biggest moment of his life. He's taking over the St. Louis Cardinals.
I know.
You don't think he's going to write down some things and be like, maybe I'll become prepared instead of shooting from the hip?
I think that's a good idea. I think he should. I thought he was fine. But here's the thing. So Terry Bradshaw has a fantastic Hall of Fame speech. If you haven't seen it, it's Mike Webster, if I could put my hands under your butt one more time. It was very funny. And the whole thing was great. So one time I was interviewing Terry Bradshaw and I said, man, you had the best Hall of Fame speech I've ever seen. It was awesome. It was so fun and so funny and so genuine and from the heart. So let me tell you a story about that. He said, I had hired a consultant to help me write my Hall of Fame speech. And I'd gone through it. We'd spent months on it. And in Canton, before the Hall of Fame, they used to have their parade of Hall of Famers down the street to the Hall of Fame, and the players would be sitting in a convertible. And so he said, I'm sitting in my convertible in the parade, and I'm thinking, I just don't like this speech. It's not me. So I took it out of my jacket pocket, and I tore it up, and I threw it on the streets of Canton, Ohio. And he said, then when I got there, I just spoke from the heart. And he made a sensational speech from the heart. And I'm with you. I think that walking into that press conference, that Chaim Bloom should have just taken that thing out of his jacket, torn it up, and spoken from the heart. Said, Mookie Betts, if I could trade you one more time, I'd love to be able to do that.